You can't give what you don't have. When you are talking about integrity, you are really talking about the real person, who that person is.
When you talk of integrity, you talk of honesty. To be honest. And to be honest means to be trustworthy, to be truthful. And politics is science and art of government.
Politics is about the people.
Yes.
And if you talk about it in a deeper sense, it has to do with how people take decisions on how to lead themselves.
Good day, viewers. We welcome you to another interesting episode of Christians in Politics. Is coming to you from your daily station, ACNN, Anglican Cable Network Nigeria. We're happy to know that you are there, and today we are going to be looking at 2019 Osun governorship election in perspective, and we have a gentleman in the studio who are going to join us in the analysis of what happened in Osun, and to chart the way forward for Nigeria, especially as we are expecting the general election, 2019 general election, which is already in the corner. And remember, the phones will be open because it's going to be an interactive session as usual. You are free to call in, and you are free to follow us on the media platform like Facebook and YouTube as usual. This morning I want to welcome you, Dr. Ben Olugbo. Dr. Ben is the Executive Director of Clean Foundation, and I know you were one of the observers that were on ground at Osun. So I'm very happy to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
This morning, and it will help us to get more facts. Your coming will really be of a great help to us today. We'll be able to get more facts on what happened on ground. And we also have in the studio with us this morning Mr. Lucky Eraihweme, the MD, Hweme Computers and Allied Services Limited, based in Abuja here. Mr. Lucky,
thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Good to be here once again.
Yeah, you have escaped for some time, so this time I caught you. So, yes, 2019 Osun governorship election in perspective. This election, long-awaited election, have come and gone, and the dust is still up there, not rested. Atlanta PDP is in court, challenging the result of that election. And many are of the opinion that what happened in Osun is a mirror of what to expect in 2019. So much of information, rumors, this or that on air. Yesterday, when I told somebody we'll be discussing Osun election here, he just condemned the REC, the resident electoral commissioner that handled that election wholesale. And I said, why? He said, didn't you see a video where he received a call, and after receiving the call, he decided to declare the election inconclusive? I said, well, on my own, I didn't see such video. I have not watched such video. So what I'm trying to say is that so much of noise, and it's unexpected. So we are going to look at all these things and provide some balance, and bring out the facts at our disposal to the people. And before we go on, the role of election observer is so central in the administration of election in any country. And so we want to play a video to set the tone. And after that, we start the discussion proper.
The missions of the United States, the European Union, and the United Kingdom observed voting at polling stations in Osun today. We witnessed what appeared to be incidents of interference and intimidation of voters and heard reports of harassment of party monitors, journalists, and domestic observers. We are very concerned by these reports and will be checking with stakeholders to determine the facts. We call on all stakeholders to remain calm.
Yeah, that is a video clip from international observers, and they were very categorical that what they observed was intimidation. You know, voters were restrained. Many were not allowed even to reach the polling unit. Talk about harassment of a political opponent, so many things. And in your own perspective, let me start with Lucky, as an ordinary Nigerian who was watching from afar. What is your opinion as of today about this Osun governorship election?
Once again, good morning, viewers. My opinion is I know that the election was highly contested, and based on what those on ground said now for international observers, the Saturday one, I think that video should be after the run.
Yes.
The Saturday one was what I monitored from the TV in my house in Abuja here, was better. There was no much complaint on Saturday. But if what the observer is saying is actually true, I think that is not good enough for our politics. Our politicians should learn to play by the rules. I don't think election should be do or die. Because if you start doing it in the do or die form, it will not take us anywhere. So my own opinion is, if that is true, it's not right. And thank God there are channels to challenge that, which is the tribunal and the courts. I think those that lost, they have a way out. If that is true, what happened is not right and it should be addressed. And the police should learn to stay clear from supporting people during election. I think the IG or the commissioner, the IG may not be aware, maybe the commissioner should be called, or area commander should be called to order. This has been happening for a long time, way back 82, or even in the First Republic. We should grow above this, above maybe police or people interfering in the electoral process. Voting is by choice. People have the right to choose who their leader should be. You should not cajole people, or you should not force people to choose or not to choose who their leader should be. This will help us a lot. And my opinion is that government should sit tight. I think we will be able to do much, because it's not like that will intimidate people. I think a bloody civilian like me and you, they are not armed. I think it has to do with the security agents. Similar thing happened 4 years ago when in Ekiti, when the military were used to intimidate people, to block people's houses. That was Fayoshe's second coming. I think by now we should have grown that. We have voted for change. I think these are some of the things we want to see changed in our society. So my opinion is that government should sit tight and let this election flows. Let this flows. It's better for each and every one of us. Because when we destroy it, even those that are destroying it will also suffer. The poor man on the street will suffer. The politicians will suffer. Most of them don't have any other job.
Are you sure they understand that?
If this democracy collapse, they will start selling their houses. Most of them are jobless. If you give most of them 1 million, they can't turn it to 1.5 million. They only know how to grab and grab. So they even have more at stake than us. This is their job, this is their profession. So they should learn to play by the rules guarding it. Okay. It's not good enough that the international observers are commenting this way, but these reports are going all over the world.
But do you think, in your own opinion, the report of international observers is something to go by? It's worth it? It's something that we should not just sweep under the carpet?
Before you started the program, you said election observers, they are vital in the electoral process. So they are there for a purpose. The purpose is to monitor what really happened. They are neutral bodies.
That's to observe.
Observe. They are not contesting. They don't belong to any political party. Most of them are not even Nigerians. So they are neutral bodies. So when a neutral person is giving his view about what happened in a particular thing, I think the view should be respected. It's like a referee in a football match.
Okay. Now, Dr. Ben, you are an accredited election observer, and you are the head and the director of a Clean Foundation, which is a reputable observation group in Nigeria. You were on ground in the first election that was held before the rerun. Now, what can you say you observed on ground?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just start by saying that Clean Foundation is originally known as Center for Law Enforcement Education, and
Center for
Law Enforcement Education.
Yes, Center for Law Enforcement. Yeah, that is
so
right.
we work on public safety and security and access to justice, and we work basically with security agencies and also vulnerable groups. So we were accredited by INEC to observe this election. And we observed the election in collaboration with the Police Service Commission. We deployed more than 90 observers in the 30 local governments. You know, Osun State has 30 local governments. So we arrived like on Thursday and did our training for all the observers on Friday, and they deployed to different places. Then on Saturday I left because we were in Osogbo. I had to leave Osogbo and go to different 4 local governments. Okay. I may not say the local governments as they ought to sound, but I know I was in Ayadade, I was in Iwo local government, and I also went to, I think, Isoko, something that sounds like that. And for me, generally on Saturday the election was generally okay, because we had reporters sending us pictures, sending us information, and basically our responsibility as observers in collaboration with the Police Service Commission was to look at the conduct of security agencies. Yeah,
we come to that because I know.
Yeah.
But for now, want to give me general perspective about
the general perspective of what happened on 22nd of September is that it was generally peaceful. And interestingly, most of the security agencies and even INEC officials were at the polling booth before 7 o'clock. We also had a good number of Osun citizens who were also there, even before the officials. And by 8 o'clock, most of the various polling booths had started accreditation and voting. Of course, you know now you do simultaneous accreditation and voting. And so we were able to go to different, I visited not less than 10 different polling units in 4 different local governments, because I left Osogbo around 7 o'clock and came back around 1:30 back to Osogbo in order to now start receiving the reports that our colleagues. In my observation, one thing I noticed that in Iwo local government, there was a high concentration of security agencies there. And then I asked the driver that was carrying me, he told me that there are several contestants in Iwo, and that Iwo is also a flashpoint. In fact, one of the security agencies stopped me and asked me, where is your permanent voter's card? I was wearing the INEC observer kit, I was wearing their cap, I had the ID card, and I'm like, I'm not from Osun State, I'm just an observer, and brought out my ID card. So he looked at the ID card and said I should go on, which also raises an issue of security agencies and their role.
Their awareness.
Their awareness and all those things. So I really want to say that we commend Osun people for the maturity they played during the 22nd September election. There was a high sense of maturity, and we recorded very few incidences of ballot snatching, and which of course, and then other irregularities which caused them to now call for a rerun on 27th. But what we can say with certainty is that if the election had stopped on what happened on 22nd, it would have been a thumbs up for sure.
Now you have used my word. I was just about to ask you whether, as far as 22nd election was concerned in Osun, is your organization's thumb up for the electorate
Yeah, so for us, so we released like 3 reports. Before the election, we had a pre-election statement we made. During the election around 2 o'clock, we now looked at the timing, the conduct of security agencies, the time they appeared, and what was their relationship with ordinary voters. And I think, let me go back, actually. In April, we did a security threat assessment on 12 states in the country. And we particularly picked out Ekiti and Osun because we knew they will have up-cycle elections in 2018. And for Osun, 74% of the citizens said that the election was going to be free and fair and was going to be peaceful. So we were not expecting it to be like we have.
So on the 22nd, they lived up to your expectation.
They lived up to that expectation.
So your organization's term was up for the electorate.
Yes, because there was general.
Now, still talking on the electorate, was there voter apathy?
I didn't see more of voter apathy because, like in the one local government, I think Ward 3, you see this long line. I think this was an hour around like after 1, long line, hot. And the card readers were slow, and people were becoming frustrated, actually. So I engaged a particular woman in a conversation. I'm telling her, Madam, what's your motivation for standing in this long line and ensuring that your votes, you get accredited and you vote? She said, she's told me, and I quote, that she is here to ensure that the future of her children are protected.
So voters' awareness is high.
Very high.
Who takes the credit for that? INEC, political parties, or civil societies?
I think everybody, not only INEC, not only civil society, not only political parties. All of us. We all take credit because also remember that there was this vote not fight campaign that was being done and several youths.
Then let's leave the electorate. Was the organization's stamp up for INEC for 22nd as the umpire?
Yes, because one thing, you know, in Ekiti, there was this massive vote buying. It was glaring that between you at the polling booth and the party agents, you could see who the voter had voted, and they would actually show you. It was a show and buy. You know, there's a Yoruba language they use to
to market,
you know, and all those things. But what happened? So INEC now made an announcement. If they made a guideline and said, once you collect the ballot paper, you should not have an active cell phone. Which was also misinterpreted by some security agencies.
Yes, that was misinterpreted.
Who now said that nobody should come with a phone and all those things, which was not what they said.
No, we cleared that here. And even
so, but what they now did is that the space between where you collect your ballot paper and the polling booth was separate, and then you could go and vote without anybody knowing what was going on, and the space also between the polling booth and the security agencies and the party agents was such that they could not just see unless you now want them to see, because also the problem was the folding. So if you fold back way, you cover whatever you have done. But if you fold the other side, you know, you could mistakenly or otherwise show somebody who is not very close to you. But what I noticed is that nobody was holding his phone while they were voting. And security agencies and party agents were very far from the polling booths. But also, vulnerable people like old people and those who were disabled, we realized that they were being helped either by security agencies. But from our own perspective, you could also see that the security agencies were actually seeing.
In some of the previous elections, we learned that INEC were trying to make arrangement for individuals who will be staff of INEC, who will assist the those who are vulnerable, those who are physically challenged in one way or the other in pursuance of their inclusive policy.
Yeah, so they've done that. In fact, in Osun State, they actually tried out the use of Braille for those who are, you know, visually impaired.
Yes.
And we've heard that it's actually the first time it's been done in Africa.
Yeah, last week I was privileged to be at the official unveiling of the INEC framework on the inclusion of people with disabilities in the electoral process.
Yeah.
And I saw for
me, there was general improvement in the way INEC.
So your term was up for INEC on the 22nd.
Yes.
Then, lastly, on term up, was your term up for security? Because I know that is your area.
Yeah, we also, in our report, we also commended the security agencies for the way and manner they behaved. One of the key things, if we go back a little in Ekiti State, and even in previous elections, is that most times security agents are deployed without them having any allowance, and there's actually no means of sustenance until probably after the election, which, of course, we know in Nigeria, a hungry man is an angry man. So it's a recipe for disaster, actually, when you bring security agencies.
Are you making excuse for the police?
No, I'm not making an excuse for them. But what I'm trying to say is that we called on the IG and the federal government to ensure that security agencies are paid before they are deployed for election duties.
Look, do you sympathize with the police? Because we have always heard of this problem with welfare. There has always been problem with welfare generally. Do you sympathize with the police?
I do sympathize with the police. You know, it's quick for people to blame the average policeman on the streets, but if you go deep and you know what they are going through, you will pity them. I used to have an uncle that was a DCP in an FCT here. Anytime I go to his office in Gariki, you will meet people traveling back on that staircase. And I asked him what are these people doing here? He said, they were posted there, no accommodation, that's where they sleep.
If you go to the command headquarters in Abuja, this traveling back.
That's command in Gariki. Yes, that's where they sleep.
Okay, that is the place.
Yes.
I've been there severally.
47,
and you see,
no accommodation, no allowance, no place to sleep. And you send him to the road. And you said they should not commit. They have school fees to pay. I asked a corporate in the army some time ago, a son of a friend of mine, how much do you collect? You have spent 5 years in the army. He said, bros, all my allowances as an army officer is 49,000. And 49,000, you got to stay on the roadblock in Kaduna. Come rain, come sunshine. 49,000, I cannot buy my fuel for a month. So we should really start with the junior officers, basically. These guys are suffering. They can't speak, well, they will call it mutiny. They can't shout, but I think it's time for people to set up NGOs.
No, they will not keep quiet forever. That's why we saw a pocket of protests in the northeast. Yes. So these guys, you really go deep. If you had them as your friends, you will pity them. There's no how an average policeman, I'm not encouraging them to take bribe, but there's no how an average security officer in Nigeria will not take bribe. On the 22nd at Osun, from the information you gathered, were you pleased with the performance of security generally? We have an on-the-spot assessment person here. He has given us general view of what happened. To corroborate what you had before. I have compared what happened and what happened on TVs. We're watching, listening to the news. I think I'm standing by his opinion and by his points that I believe they did. I wasn't there, but with his assessment, with what he has explained, they did well. On the 22nd. Yes, and he made a statement that they told the IG that these people should be well taken care of before sending them out. Because politicians are out to buy anybody. So don't make them vulnerable. Okay, Dr. Ben, so in your own perspective, as far as 22nd was concerned, at least there was an improvement over what happened at Ekiti. Another elections. But we also observed some lapses, which we also pointed out in our lapses, because we pointed out in our report. What would be very lucky to have a PP to that report. One is that some police officers or security agents misconstrued the guideline INEC gave. Okay. INEC said, if you're going to vote, if you've collected the voter's card, then don't use your phone. Some people now, some of the security agents now translated it to mean that nobody should come with phone, whether you're a voter, whether you're a pressman, whether you're an observer, should come with a phone close to the polling unit. But INEC was polling booths. They are two different things. So the polling unit contains everybody, both the voters, INEC officials, security agents, and even observers. The polling booth is just for one. The polling booth is just for the voter. Where you thumbprint. So the INEC said nobody should go with a phone, because what people are doing is they will vote and snap
evidence of where they voted so that they can collect money. But now, we now realize that even some of my colleagues, their phones were actually seized but returned to them when, after pleading and explaining and all those things. We also noticed...
The phones of election observers.
Yes, they were told, no, it's not allowed here.
No, observers are entitled
so
to...
that is the thing. So we try to explain to them that what INEC said does not apply to observers. And the essence of having an observer is actually to monitor the events. And if you see anything that is untoward, you have to record it as evidence.
Yes.
So I think it was after some explanation that those gadgets were returned back.
Do you suspect that there was a deliberate play?
No, I'm not sure it was a deliberate play per se.
Or ignorance.
I think it was more of an ignorance.
I think maybe their superior did not brief them.
Yeah, I think it was more, or maybe they were just acting on their own, probably. Another thing we also noticed, our observers reported to us, is that some officials, some security agencies, let me not call police or whoever, we are moving out and coming back at intervals.
Leaving the polling booth, going and coming
back. And observers kept sending us message, he has left again. So they just kept going and coming at intervals, and so they kept wondering why that movement, because your responsibility is to ensure that there is calmness, there is peace, and that people are able to conduct their affairs within the polling unit as prescribed by law. So the movement was not, maybe somebody was going to answer the call of nature. So that was picked up. And then also, another thing we also noticed is that there was a particular polling unit where through pictorial snapshots, there was an allegation which, looking on the pictures that was sent to us, you could prove, it was a circumstantial evidence anyway, that a polling agent, a party agent, had a handkerchief. You can't, from the picture, you're not sure what is in this handkerchief, but you will see the picture tracing the handkerchief moving from the party agent, and by the time you get to the fourth, fifth picture, the handkerchief had now changed hands and was now on the left-hand side of a security agent who was at the polling booth. So something must have exchanged hands. Looking at the picture, you are not sure what is in that white handkerchief, but something moved. So, which was also reported to the Police Service Commission, because
from the observation, general observation, will you say the lapses, the irregularities on the part of security personnel was significant enough to have declared that election inconclusive?
Okay, so what now happened towards the collation period? So from what we were informed is that, in a ward in Osogbo there was no election, and in another ward, because there were 4 local governments that were concerned that they had problems. One was overvoting, and then the other one was that ballot box was snatched. Yeah. So I'm a lawyer, so let's put it this way: the Constitution and the Electoral Act gives INEC the power to declare an election inconclusive. And so what they did was to read out some of the problems or infractions that they said, of course, happened, of course, which some people also reported. Whether those infractions should have warranted the declaration of the election being inconclusive is something that INEC has a duty to do. So since they have done it, I think it's our responsibility to agree with them that the election was inconclusive, and they declared it inconclusive because the Constitution and the Electoral Act and their own guideline gives them power to do what they have done. Whether what they have done now is right or wrong, I think I cannot make that judgment in terms of moving to 27th now, because it's now a judicial matter, an issue, because it's now a court of competent jurisdiction that will now say whether what INEC did was legal or not. But whether they had the power to do it, yes, they had the power based on the
I know they have the power.
And based on the Electoral Act and based on the guidelines they had established. They had the power to call the election as inconclusive. But whether what they did was legal or not is now the responsibility of a court to determine, which we hope sooner than later they will be able to do that.
Okay. Now, Lucky, what can you say to Nigerians generally on what happened on the 22nd before we move to 27th?
What the observer has explained, I think is an encouragement that Nigerians should not lose hope. That
if Nigerians want to do things right, they can.
If we are determined to do things right, we can. The human system is not perfect. That's why you have all these fractions here and there, as he mentioned. Somebody is giving somebody a handkerchief, it's normal. The American system is not perfect. Obama, Bush and the other person had issues years back. That somebody they used machine to read. So all those things happens. It's only God that can give you 100% election. But with what he's saying now, maybe on that 22nd, they must have scored like, let me say 75-80%, which is a pass mark. So we should not lose sleep. It is Nigerians that will change this country. Nobody will change it for us. So if we are determined to make things right, the Osun
Nigerians, politicians, or who?
Generally. Okay. The Osun people determined to vote well, determined that the election will be peaceful to an extent. That's why it was peaceful to an extent. If they want to declare war, it will be war. But they determined to do it the right way. So we should be determined to do us the right way at all times. We should not lose sleep. We should not lose hope. What about the second? Thank God, with what the Islam said was perfectly okay. We can still repeat such in the forthcoming election. We will do better. With what we have seen now.
Let me ask at this point. I can't wait till the end of the program so that I will not lose the thought. Should a Christian snatch election balls under any circumstance? Should that be a sin before God? Especially when he sees that things are not being done right.
If snatching of balls is a crime, it becomes a sin.
Yeah.
So any criminal act to me is a sin.
What of buying of a vote by a politician?
I can also link that to bribery.
It's inducement.
It's inducement. It's bribery.
Then what of
you are trying to pervert the cause of justice.
What of the poor man who have not eaten for some days and he went to a polling booth to vote, a unit to vote, and he sees somebody who is ready to dash him some money?
That is where it's so tight for Nigerians. Our leaders have succeeded in pushing us to a level of well, I don't know how to describe it, that the poverty level is so high that
we are at the mercy of the leaders.
We are in a country where people are even selling their children. So a man that can sell his child or her child, or a woman that can sell, will definitely take money for somebody to vote. That's the level our leaders have pushed us to. But my advice for Nigeria is collect their money and vote your conscience.
You support collecting of money?
I don't support collecting money. But if that is what the extent you have been pushed to, but as a child of God, don't collect your money. Don't collect their money, vote. But you know, not everybody has that same level of faith.
Okay.
My level of faith, I can collect.
So the one whose faith is weak can collect the money, but you should go ahead and do the right thing by voting his conscience.
The right person. The right person that.
Okay.
That is it.
We are going to hold it at that very point.
Because if you collect the money or not, the politicians will still do what they want to do. But you do and vote your conscience.
Well, somebody said to me one day, it's our money. If they give it to me, I collect it. So let's hold it at that point. We observe a little break and we will continue when we come back.
Next year is electioneering year. The leaders should be able to tell us what exactly, where are they taking us to? Any moment from now, where are they really taking us to? So they should be able to tell us where they are taking us to in the next 5 years, in the next 6 years, in the next 10 years, where is Nigeria going to be? So that is what I expect of them. As they are coming up for their campaign now, they should be able to tell us in these 4 years, it's not those political promises. We should be able to tell us at the end of these 4 years, this is where I am taking Nigeria to, and we should measure it by that, whether they have achieved it or not.
My own opinion is that every leader should see that our vote counts. It is not just saying election should be free and fair. We should be able to see how fair the election is, and the electoral umpire must not be political. in their activities so that we can respect the opinion of the people, and we'll be able to see in a practical term that we are working toward that perfection, even though we are yet to be perfect.
Look at the just concluded election in Osun State. The international community have confirmed that that was a charade. But you see the Nigerian government, they are celebrating it. Even the president, to the extent of congratulating the winner. Everybody knows that that was not really an election. And you say we're an independent country. What do you have to show for it? Nothing. This country is lacking leadership. We have no good leaders. The leaders are not visionary. And moreover, at the age of our leaders, they are so old that they cannot articulate with the current trend in this country.
Corruption, of course, is among our leaders and politics. Oftentimes I ask myself the question, if, for example, if an average Nigerian whom his or her yearly salary would be 30 million naira, for example, and he's willing to spend 1 billion naira to get a political position, the question is, there is something that they are saying that we, the electorate, is not seeing, and that is corruption. And that is the ability or the opportunity to privatize public wealth. And indeed, that is corruption. And that is not the essence of politics. The essence of politics is to come and govern people well, create job opportunities, and see that things are good within Nigerians so that citizens can live well. But the case is the reverse in Nigeria.
This Osun concluded election just showed the kind of degree of corruption we have in Nigeria. The so-called government that is saying is fighting corruption, mathematically, rob the people of Osun State of their mandate is unfair. With the report and with videos we're seeing is very, very unfair. Is uncalled for. Basically, Nigeria lack leadership. That is the obvious truth about it. We lack so much in leadership. That is where our problem lies. The only way Nigeria can come out of this corruption is by electing a good leader. And how do we know a good leader if we have not searched for it? How do we know a good leader? We must search for that good leader. We must search for it. All these old politicians, we don't have hope in them. But I believe in the upcoming politicians. The youth should take it upon themselves. Look, selling your vote for peanut is selling your destiny. Is selling the future of your children, selling the future of the next generation. So it is important that the youth, we must rise up. I'm a youth. I'm speaking to the youth now, that we must rise up this coming election, this 2019 election, and ensure that the leaders that are not worth to be there should not be there.
Still Christians in politics, and we are on the topic 2019 Osun Governorship election in perspective. And just listen to some video clips, a lot of messages for Nigerians there. And I have still with me in the studio Dr. Ben Olugbo, who is the Executive Director of Clean Foundation. He has been talking to us on what he observed on ground on the 22nd in particular. And we also have our brother, Mr. Lucky Iraikweme, the Executive, the MD, Managing Director, Kweme Computers and Allied Services with us. Now, before we go to, we are expecting people to react from outside as usual, and the lines have been open. And so viewers, your comments, your opinion are welcome in this program as usual. Now, let me come back to Dr. Ben. Now, what could have happened between 22nd and 27th? That is, from the report from the international election observers. I'm not trying to say that the opinion of domestic observer is less important than that of a foreign observer, but foreign observers are completely independent. Whether we like it or not, as a Nigerian and as an election observer, I'm a stakeholder in Nigeria project, and there's this temptation that sometimes one can think to one side in his reports and not. But if the international observers, the European Union and all of them come together to say something went wrong, there was intimidation, there was harassment, so many things went wrong, people were prevented from casting their vote and all sorts of irregularities, then what could have happened between, is it a question of Hosanna and today and crucify him tomorrow? What could have happened between, who should be blamed for that sudden turn of event?
There are several factors. So Osun was a rehearsal for 2019. Everybody knows that. Even
a rehearsal.
Yes, was a preparation, if we can call it that. Yeah. So the stakes were very high, and you will also realize that the political parties, 41 of them, all tried everything they could do to ensure they won the election. And if you look at the numbers, you will see that it was a four-horse race. Yeah. Unlike in other states where you have just 2 horse race. So each of the contenders in the 4 political parties had huge followers and also had considerable numbers. And then what I know happened is that the difference between the PDP candidate and the APC candidate was like 353. Yeah. And so there is a guideline, INEC guideline actually has a guideline which says that if the difference between the person who is on top and the second runner-up is less than the number of cancelled votes, that the election should be declared inconclusive and there should be a rerun, which is what they did. But you can also hear there's also argument that such a thing also happened in Kogi, but there was no rerun. And also, if you go back in Edo State, in the case between Adams Oshomole and the former governor, where the Supreme Court rightly stated that if votes are cancelled, they are useless. There's nothing you can do about that. So from the whole calculation, you will see that each of the camps, they have a case, depending on where you are looking at it. Like I said, INEC has the power to declare inconclusive.
Yes, I personally don't have any problem with INEC declaring any election inconclusive. I know there are rules and regulations, and I know that very provision that they leaned upon to do what they did.
They did, yeah.
And I am not also of the opinion that, oh, if you didn't do the right thing in Ekiti, don't do the right thing in Osun. So, to you gentlemen in the studio, now, the report about 27th is not pleasing
at all.
Yeah. At all. Now, we are privileged to have you, the executive director for Clean Foundation, and you work with the police. Your primary goal is to monitor the activities or observe the activity of the security agencies and all that. Now, what can you say went wrong?
Yeah,
on the 27th.
27th was a difficult day for most observers, actually. But I had to leave because my ticket was already bought by the time we were leaving Abuja for the distance. So I had to leave on Monday.
But your men were still on ground.
We had observers on ground, especially in those local governments. So some of our observers who were now going to Orolu local government could not enter Orolu.
Why?
They were detained.
By who? By the police?
At the police checkpoint. Let's say security agents. But I think it's the police. They were detained at the security point, and they were asked to go and get a letter from INEC. And that there's a letter that INEC was now issuing for people to observe the elections. And so they now called us. And we now
I didn't get that.
Well, I mean, they were told that that there's a letter that people are now holding, those who are to observe the rerun. And they were kitted on their INEC accreditation cap, T-shirts, and even their ID and everything complete. But the security agencies detained them, collected their phones. I think later their phones were given back to them. And when we now we had to call INEC and say, this is what is happening. Our observers who are going to Orolu have not been allowed access. And I think like in an interval of 30 minutes, they were asked to go, but that they would not be allowed to enter Orolu until they get the accreditation. So they had to go back to Osun. They never, our field
fresh
observers,
accreditation letter?
Yes, and to the best of my knowledge, such a letter never existed, because we now asked INEC, do you have any fresh accreditation that people needed to observe the rerun, which INEC answered in the negative, that the accreditation they have is the one everybody...
No, there could have even been another accreditation letter,
so
because it was the same election that was ongoing. And your organization have already been accredited by INEC.
Yeah. So from our own perspective, whatever happened in Orolu local government
was a move to prevent the observers from getting to their duty posts.
They couldn't go, and from also the information we got from different of our colleagues who were in different places, there was what we can now call clear militarization of the process. They had more security agencies that was needed for the rerun, and also thugs had a field day. And some people were actually injured, which of course most of us saw on television and all those things. And we emphasized to them their safety.
You know, earlier you talk about a video and a handkerchief. Only you didn't. Your people didn't know what was the content of the handkerchief. Yes. But on the 27th, some people, I don't know how true it is. Some people said that. A particular political party asked their voters, the electorates, to hold white handkerchiefs. And they said whenever they get to any checkpoint and they show white handkerchief, they will be allowed to pass. Then anyone who comes who have no white handkerchief, they know that that one they did not belong to that particular political party that the security wanted to favor, and they were. That was a wide allegation that was all over.
We also had the allegation, but my observers did not
confirm.
They didn't confirm that. Yeah.
Abraham,
voters' card is very, very important as far as we are citizens of Nigeria. It's one of the quality of a good citizen. But what I'm trying to say is that. If we should understand what happened in Osun State and Ekiti State, we will discover that whether voters card or not, APC are tried by all means to subdue Nigeria. Voters card is very, very important. As a pastor, we have instructed our members to get voters card. The mistake we made initially is that where we have the mentality that politics is not for Christians. Actually, politics is for Christians. Joseph was a Christian. He was a prime minister in Egypt. Daniel was a Christian. And that mentality we are becoming up with, that our fathers try to tell us that politics is not for Christians, that is where many of us miss it. Now that our eyes are Christians, our eyes are open, we are trying to call back to politics. It's like the door has been locked against us. We are trying to open the door. So what I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to tell my reverend that voters card is not important. It is very, very important. But I am saying that APC, they will use the same strategies they use in Osun State as far as 2019 election is concerned. But except God evolve. God is in control in the affair of Nigeria. I believe whatever that is happening now, God knows about it. God is involved. That is my contribution.
So thank you very much, Mr. Abraham. I really appreciate that you were able to call back and to clear that very point on the issue of the importance of the PVC. And your point on which we were trying to make earlier is clearer now, that what Abraham is trying to say is that from the way things are going, it's like the ruling party are not willing to make election free and fair. Lucky, do you share that idea to some extent?
We are looking at what happens on the 27th.
Yes, that is what he's saying.
Based on what we are discussing.
Yes.
With what the report we got on the 27th with the AU and United Nations observers. I think what happened on 27th, which the report
and of course, not only AU and European Union.
And our local observers.
Local observer, yes, an observer. Yes. You can hear the ordeal that his personnel passed through.
Was not proper and is highly condemnable. But that should not make us to lose hope. At all. We will get there. It may take time. What happened on Osun may not necessarily happen in another state in the next election, because this is just a one-state affair. And they are able to move over 40,000 policemen. In the next general election, it may not be possible.
No, if one policeman wants to harass people in the police unit, he can do it, because...
no, he can't, because they are not allowed to take them to the police unit.
No, it's on uniform.
Yeah.
If now, as a responsible citizen, if I'm coming to the police unit and the policeman says don't get in there, I can't disobey.
No.
If you disobey...
I'm not trying to rule out the issue of intimidation come 2019. Okay. Because politicians want to get what they want to get at all costs. My speaker will always tell us in church, you cannot stop the bird from flying over your head, but you can stop the bird from perching on your shoulder. Yes. So politicians are ready to intimidate. They are ready to intimidate themselves now in the primaries. They intimidate themselves. They are already intimidated. They even intimidate themselves. Yes. Don't talk of me and you that. But we should also stand up to them. We may not be able to get it right, but to an extent, we can push for a little decency in the system. We should not lose hope. And
how do we make that push for a little decency?
We should, with determination, you can achieve all. With determination, you can achieve all. Like Abraham made the statement that Christians don't do politics before. Christians have always been doing politics. The apostolics of this world, they were Christians. But my prayer with our Christian brothers is that we don't take Christ into our office. When we win the election, we drop Christ. But the people of other faiths, they will take their religion to the office. Go to hell if you want to go to hell. So that's the area I feel Christians are missing it. If we go to the office and propagate Christ, we'll have gone far by now.
Okay, now, it's not easy to have the executive director of Clay Foundation every day. And
so
now that
make full use of him today.
Yeah, now that I have him, let me be sure that I really get so much. Now, what is your organization doing in trying to reorientate the police force in particular and the other sister security agencies?
Yeah, thank you very much. We have worked closely with the Nigerian police force in different of our programs, especially also in relation to election security management, because election is key. Security is key in an election. If you're not sure that your security will be protected when election is going, you will not want to come out. Okay. And that is why you notice that in some places you have less number of people that come out. On Osun State, they have about 1.2 million.
It was really impressive.
Yeah, and so you see registered voter. I'm not sure it's up to that, but you see there's a demography that is showing in terms of numbers of registered voters, and there's those who finally come out to vote. What we've always told the police and security agencies is that there has to be a balancing act. You need to have enough security to ensure the protection of life and property. But we should not have a security to the extent...
Is that enough, not a term militarization of the...
That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is that there has to be a balancing act. You need enough to ensure the protection of life and property. But we should not have it to the extent that people are now scared to come out to vote. What we noticed, like in Osun, is that for most of the polling units, you have 4 unarmed police officers, average of 4 unarmed police officers, and then maybe 1 or 2 other security agencies that were with them. But then if you leave the polling unit and go on the major roads, you will now see heavily armed police, army, and other security agencies.
I was to ask whether the military were on ground.
They were on ground. In fact, it was actually the military that stopped me and asked me for my PVC.
Were they supposed to be there at all?
It has been an issue. It has been an issue on whether the military,
because Boko Haram is still threatening Nigerians in the far east.
Yeah. But also, if you look at what what we heard about Iwo, yes. They were almost on every roadblock, heavily armed, and what we are told is that place is a flashpoint, and that is...
If it's a flashpoint, what are the mobile police doing? Do we need military?
Well, the argument whether you need the military has always been a very serious one. A lot of people argue that we shouldn't have the military. But interestingly, if you understand security management in Nigeria now, as we speak, we have 34 active military deployment in the 36 states of the Federation. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the military is here with us. I think we have to be realistic about that. Yeah. And the reality also is that because the police has actually been, the funding that should go to them is not going to them. We have reduced the police.
Do you think with more fund the police can do better?
I think the police needs reform first before funding. You understand?
Who is to do the reform?
It's the government. Let me tell you.
What if the government is not interested?
No, the government has to be interested. You know why? After the president, you know the most powerful Nigerian is the Inspector General of Police.
Yes.
You need to read, and let me also remind you, the Police Act we are using now is the Police Act of 1943. There have been cosmetic changes, but so those changes are not...
So the Police Act is senior to some of us. so there's need for reformation.
There's need for reform.
So, and I think...
and to insulate the IGP.
The Foundation should continue to push
for
that reformation.
We are
because
pulling for that,
you work with them, you know more about them. Unfortunately, time is up. And Lucky, just your last word.
Regard to...
2019.
Nigerians should not lose faith.
Yes.
Nigerians should be determined. And Nigerians should learn to do the right thing. And again, you the preachers, the pastors, let's appeal to the conscience of our politicians.
We are part of Nigerians.
No, you have a higher role to play than okay. You have congregation under you, ministers, politicians. Let's appeal to their conscience to learn to do the right thing. Because it's easier for us to sit here.
We do more.
No, I mean,
we do more.
Yes, we do more. It's easier for us to sit here and discuss it. Politicians are not willing to listen. Most of them. Okay. They are made up and they are...
But we'll continue to talk.
Thank you very much. To the devil, I don't know. Please,
Dr. Ben, your last word concerning 2019.
Yes, about 64% of Nigerians actually said that they expect the 2019 election to be peaceful. Okay. So there's a positive attribute as we go to that election.
So the Osun election, irrespective of what has happened, should not dampen people's...
Okay.
On that note, we will round up the program for today. We should be in high hope that 2019 general election is going to be peaceful, and ACNN, the umpire, is going to do the right thing. I think they should also look at what happened in Osun and learn some lessons from it and improve so that we can move forward as a country. We want to thank Dr. Ben for being with us.
Thank you very much.
It was very interesting to have you. And Mr. Lucky Rekweme, thank you very much for coming. We will have you again. And we thank Nigerians and all those who called in. We thank you very much for being with us. I'm Venerable J.O. Unwanya, your host. We come your way next time.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests and viewers and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Anglican Cable Network Nigeria, ACNN.